Hello and welcome back to the Second Kick Podcast. My name is Calvin Williams. I'm here with my co-host Marco Rogers, and today we are limited on what college football we can talk about, but we still have a little bit of a Heisman reaction to get to. That was a little bit crazy. Not so much the winner, but the people behind him and the placements. And then we'll talk about college basketball, a little more NFL this week since we don't have that college football to talk about. And then some interesting World Cup stuff happened, and then we'll predict a couple bowl games that are going to happen between this and next week's podcast. So definitely action-packed, even though not too much college football. We're still going to find a way to get you a good episode. So, Marco, can you start us off with 1 through 4 on the Heisman list?
Yeah, so 1, Caleb Williams, 2, Max Duggan, 3, CJ Stroud, 4, Stetson Bennett. I'm really not surprised here on what they did. I think Max Duggan probably deserved the award more, as we talked about last week, but as expected, Caleb Williams wins it. Max Duggan gets second. I actually thought they'd put CJ Stroud at second because of his stats, but no, they do. Like Max Duggan, they put him at second. CJ Stroud goes at 3, Stetson Bennett at 4. Stetson Bennett was clearly the weakest here, and they put him at 4. So considering who they had as the finalist, I think they got this right.
Yeah, I agree. My problem's not too much with who they picked after they decided the finalists. It's more like who they decided to go with for the finalists. And 5 through 10 is a questionable list, and I'm going to list them off here. So at number 5, we have Hendon Hooker. Number 6, Bryce Young. Number 7, Blake Corum. Number 8, Michael Penix Jr. Number 9, Bijan Robinson. Number 10, Drake May. So let's just analyze this list from 10 to 5. So Drake May, I honestly think he should have been a little bit higher. I could almost see him at that 7 or 8 range. Bijan Robinson, great running back this year. I think 9 is probably where he deserves to be. Maybe 6 or 7, maybe. Michael Penix Jr., I was a little surprised to see him on this list, but he did have a phenomenal season at Washington, so that was a great season for him. Blake Corum at 7. This is my biggest. This one hurt my heart a little bit. I honestly thought he was going to be going to New York, but apparently the Heisman Committee didn't think that the running back who has been rated one of the highest of all time, based on all stats, shouldn't be a Heisman finalist, but whatever, I guess. And then 6, Bryce Young. I think this is about where he should be. I mean, he's a very good quarterback, but he just didn't have as good of a season as some of these other guys. 5, Hendon Hooker. He got hurt a couple weeks ago. He was having a great season. Then a couple losses for Tennessee definitely dropped his stock a little bit. But not a terrible list. Just definitely a couple guys you'd like to see in the top 4. Margo?
Yeah, I say you switch Blake Corum and Stetson Bennett, and I'm not really mad about this list. Drake May, guy, I thought he should have been a Heisman finalist 3 weeks ago. Then the Georgia Tech game, terrible. NC State game, he actually wasn't bad in that game, but he lost. Clemson game, terrible. So 2 of the last 3 weeks, he was awful. One of them, he was decent. Just couldn't quite close it out. But I believe he's a true freshman, so he should be able to come back and maybe even win the Heisman next year. And North Carolina should be a pretty solid team as long as their whole team doesn't transfer.
That would be pretty characteristic of how this transfer portal year is going, though. Next up, we have a little college basketball recap. Big Ten topping the AP poll right now with Purdue at number 1. This guy, this 7'4" center, Zach Edey, is. I mean, when I first saw him play at Purdue, I was like, this guy's just tall. He's uncoordinated. And he's, to be honest, he is still just tall, but he's got a little bit of skill to him now. And he's leading Purdue to a very good season so far. They're going to be a dominant team in college basketball this year. Next up, Virginia at number 2. This is a team that Michigan gave a challenge, but this is also a very solid team. They've been able to beat some highly ranked teams in UCLA and did they play UCLA? No, it was
Baylor and Illinois.
Illinois is a very good team. Baylor's a very good team. So those are some good wins for them. And then UConn at number 3. This is the biggest shock to me for sure. Purdue, Virginia, you told me they're going to be the top 5 at the start of the year. It's like, all right. I mean, they 2 pretty good basketball teams in the past few years. But UConn coming out of nowhere, 11-0 record right now. This team looks very good. They've just been able to win games. They've been pretty dominant in most of their games. This is a very good team. Marco, you want to take the rest?
Yeah, Adama Sanogo, he's been dominant for UConn. Last year he was very good. This year he's continued that. A very experienced roster. That's the same with Virginia. They have like 5 super seniors, all of them in their starting rotation. So when you have 24-year-olds playing against 19-year-olds, you're probably going to win a lot of games, as Virginia has, and they're winning a lot of close games, as you'd expect those experienced players to be able to do. Purdue at 1, I mean, Zach Edey, he's putting up 22, 14 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks a game. That's just absurd. I mean, when you're 7'4" and not an absolute twig, I mean, he's not strong, but he's not an absolute twig. He's 295 pounds. So when you're that big, you should be putting up 14 rebounds and 2.5 blocks, but 22 points is crazy. He's improved his endurance a lot. Last year, he went in for 5 minutes, got tired. Teams put up a lot of points in that time. But this year, he's improved his endurance. He's been able to go maybe 30 minutes a game, and his stat line is really showing that.
Yeah, super impressive team. Next up, we have number 7, Texas. And there's a little bit of an interesting story developing around this team. Marco, you want to touch on that?
Oh, yeah, their head coach, Chris Beard, got arrested. So, yeah, not great for them. They just had a very bad loss to someone. Actually, not that bad a loss. I think they lost to Illinois, and then they had a very close game against Rice. So clearly the team on the decline with their coach getting arrested. Next up, number 8, Alabama beats number 1 Houston. The second time this year they've beaten the number 1 team in the country. Alabama team, I feel like they can really beat anyone in the country and play like national champions, but they can also lose to some bad teams, pretty similar to how we saw last year. And I do think this Alabama team is a top 5 team and is a national championship contender, but I still think they are they're not untouchable. They're very beatable for even some of the weaker teams. So going to be interesting to see them throughout the year. And Cal, why don't you talk about Michigan?
Yeah. And one more thing. I mean, that Alabama team is led by a young star in Brandon Miller. He's a freshman, 6'9", 200 pounds. He's leading them with almost 18 points a game. So this is definitely a super impressive team, but they have to be more consistent to make a run in the tournament. And then finally for college basketball, Michigan losing to 2 highly ranked teams in Virginia and Kentucky. But they did recover with a good first Big Ten win over Minnesota. So I thought, honestly, we looked pretty good in both the Virginia and Kentucky games. Jalen Llewellyn got hurt in practice, I think, after the Kentucky game. So he is out for the remainder of the season with an ACL tear. But I honestly thought this team looked pretty solid. It gave me some hope for the rest of the season. And I think we could have won both of those games. So I'm definitely feeling better as we move towards Big Ten play. And I think we're getting a lot better. And I think if Doug McDaniel, the freshman point guard, if he keeps playing like he did against Minnesota, we can become a very good team. Marco?
Yeah, obviously Llewellyn getting injured in that Kentucky game, definitely a tough loss. I thought we would have pulled away with that game if he hadn't gotten injured. McDaniel wasn't that great in the Kentucky game, but after a few days of practice, knowing he was the number 1 point guard, definitely looked good against Minnesota. But that Minnesota game just didn't seem consistent enough to me. I don't think we're just gonna make all those shots like we did. But I still have some high hopes. We don't really have another challenge in the preseason prior to Big Ten play. We thought North Carolina would be a challenge. They're unranked now, and they're pretty bad, so shouldn't lose a game until Big Ten play, but the Big Ten is looking deep and scary this year, so definitely going to be a big challenge in the Big Ten for Michigan.
For sure. All right, moving on. A little NFL Week 14 recap. First off, Patriots getting a huge win versus the Cardinals. Definitely keeping those playoff hopes in good in check for sure. They're third in their division right now, but they are 7-6. As they're on the AFC, they're gonna have a little bit tougher of a road to the playoffs. They have teams like the Jets, the Chargers, and the Vikings, all 7-6, vying for those couple playoff spots. So this is gonna be super interesting to see how the AFC plays out. They're gonna need a couple wins down the stretch. They do unfortunately have a very tough schedule coming ahead. I mean, they have the Raiders next week, but then they play the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Bills. So they're definitely gonna need to win. They'll need to win against the Raiders next week and probably win 2 of their last 3 if they're looking at a playoff shot. Marco?
Oh, yeah, definitely going to be tough. Ramondre Stevenson went down with an injury, but the defense gets a touchdown again. If you have the Patriots defense in fantasy, you're definitely pretty happy. We've gotten over 12 points in like each of the last 5 games. Another touchdown for the defense here. Pretty sloppy first half. Able to pick it up in the second half, though, and pull away. Josh Uche, by the way, former Michigan edge rusher. He has 10 sacks in the last 5 games. Highest rated edge rusher in those last 5 games. So he is really emerging as one of the best pass rushers in the NFL. And him and Matt Judon is probably the best pass rushing duo in the NFL, both having over 10 sacks. So Pat's defense very good. Offense has been shaky. If the offense can figure it out, Matt Patricia can improve his play calling. I think we can maybe make the playoffs.
Yeah, these Michigan edge rushers are making noise all throughout the NFL. Kwity Paye, Josh Uche, and Aiden Hutchinson making big strides this week. I don't know what's in the water at Michigan, but those edge rushers have something to them. And then next up, speaking of Aiden Hutchinson, Lions getting a huge win against the Vikings, keeping their playoffs hopes alive once again. They will need to win out. Realistically, if they're looking at possibly a playoff, which looks semi-likely. I mean, they beat the Jets this week. This is their last true challenge, and then they have the Panthers, the Bears, and the Packers. So if they're able to take care of the Jets this week, I think our playoff hopes rise dramatically. We're playing super good right now. Complimentary football. The secondary needs to step it up a little bit. We're getting burnt a little too easily by these big play receivers. Like Justin Jefferson had an absolute day against us. But if we're able to lock down the secondary, we get Okuda back to 100% next week as he was just sick this week. I think this could be a team that's looking very good ahead to the postseason.
Oh, yeah, Lions definitely look good. Jared Goff has been incredible recently. Getting Jameson Williams back was big. The receiving core is great. The whole offense is great. I would like to see more out of the run game. But overall, Lions offense looks like one of the best offenses in the NFL. Defense definitely has some work, but the run-stopping defense looks solid. Just going to have to work on stopping that pass. Allowing 425 pass yards is not very good, but pretty easy schedule. Next week, you play a pretty poor Jets team, as of recently at least, with Mike White starting at quarterback. Shouldn't be too tough for the secondary. I think Lions match up well, and we'll talk about that one later.
Yep, next up, a little NFL playoff picture. One of my favorite segments. I love talking about the playoffs, college football, NFL, March Madness, NBA, you name it. So right now, the AFC has the Bills, the Chiefs, the Ravens, Titans, Bengals, Dolphins, and Patriots, respectively, in that order, in the playoffs. And then in the hunt, we have the Chargers and the Jets. So this is definitely going to be a very interesting conference to see play out. There's lots of teams with playoff chances. So this is going to be interesting. And then, Marco, can you take the NFC?
Yeah, at 1, the Eagles, they'll get the bye, and they'll probably clinch the bye pretty soon. At 2, the Vikings, 10-3. 3, the Niners, 9-4. Obviously, with Brock Purdy at quarterback, former Iowa State Cyclone a couple of years ago, Mr. Irrelevant in the draft this past year, and he comes in, beats Brady by 30. he looked great, but it's going to be tough for the Niners with him at quarterback the rest of the year. Bucks at 4. Obviously, the 4 division leaders are the first 4 spots, not based off record. Then the 3 at-large teams, 5 the Cowboys at 10-3. 6 the Commanders at 7-5-1, 7 Giants at 7-5-1. Then in the hunt, very close behind, Seahawks at 7-6, Lions at 6-7. I do see the Giants slipping up. I don't think the Giants are gonna win more than 9 games. So I think as long as the Lions or Seahawks win out, I think that either of them can make the playoffs. I do see the Seahawks getting in over the Lions. Not sure if Lions can win out, but NFC definitely looks interesting. Same with the AFC with that 3-way tie of 7-6 of the Patriots, Chargers, and Jets. But definitely an exciting playoff race, and it's going to come down to the wire here late in the season.
Yeah, and then one thing about the NFC, the Giants are very cold right now. Commanders very hot. Seahawks have a tough remaining schedule. Lions pretty easy remaining schedule. So it's just going to come down to what teams can execute. Giants also have a pretty tough remaining schedule. So the Lions definitely look like they have the easiest finish to the season, and they just have to stay hot. I think if they win out, they will be able to make the playoffs. With 10 wins, you almost have to. And then moving on, we're going to do some NFL Week 15 predictions. Lions at Jets. Both teams need this game. Both teams are going to be battling. It's going to be a great game. Battle of the best defensive rookies in the NFL. Sauce Gardner with the Jets. Aiden Hutchinson with the Lions. Super, super, super important game. Obviously, they're in different conferences, Jets in the AFC, Lions in the NFC, but must-win game for both teams. Marco?
Yeah, if the Jets slip up here, they go down to 7-7. Let's say the Pats and the Chargers both win, then they're down to a game behind from getting in. They also don't have tiebreaker over the Chargers or Patriots, so that'll put them in a really tough spot. The Lions, if they lose, season's pretty much over. Because then they'll have to win out and get a lot of help. So, huge game. I do think the Lions get it done. I don't think the Jets are very good with Mike White. They have a physical defense, but I just don't think they match up very well with the Lions.
Yeah, hopefully the Lions can stay hot and keep some hope in Detroit. Moving on, 49ers at Seahawks. This 49ers team, as you said, led by that Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy. Seahawks led by Geno Smith, and Geno Smith has had a phenomenal season this year. Everyone was like, "Oh, this is a tank year for the Seahawks. No Russell Wilson. You're basically just trading for picks." But this guy has stepped in. He said, "You know what? I'm going to try to lead my team to the playoffs," and he's been one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. So major respect to Geno Smith, but I do have the 49ers in this one. Although this is a huge game for the Seahawks and they definitely need it, I think the 49ers are going to take it here. I think this offense is playing well with Brock Purdy, and he just has so many weapons that it just makes it easy for him. Marco?
Yeah, this is a must-win game for the Seahawks, but this is also a game that Lions fans need the 49ers to win. Definitely going to be an interesting game with Brock Purdy. Not sure if he can keep up what he did last week. Actually, in the last 2 weeks. But, I mean, with all the weapons around him, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, the run game looking very good with Christian McCaffrey as he gets more comfortable every week. It's going to be tough for the Seahawks. I think this is going to be a pretty high-scoring game, but give me the 49ers in a 2-score game.
It's going to be a definitely important one right there. Next up, Dolphins at the Bills. Not as many playoff implications for this one. Both teams are looking pretty comfortable right now. Dolphins definitely need to get a couple more wins, but Bills are looking pretty good. That'll be a good game. I think the Bills are going to take it here. Tua played terrible last week. Only 10 completions on 28 passing attempts. Super bad game. I think Josh Allen is just such a good quarterback. He puts his body on the line for the team, and that's the reason why they've had so much success. So I got the Bills here. Marco.
Oh yeah, Dolphins. They're gonna trip into some dangerous waters here with the loss. If they lose this game, maybe lose to the Patriots later in the season, and they still have to play the Packers as well. Packers have looked pretty good lately. Dolphins could see themselves missing out on the playoffs, so that they definitely need to win this game to get more comfortable. I mean, it's not a must-win game, but if they want to comfortably be in the playoffs, they have to win this game. But Bills fighting for that 1 seed and first round bye with the Chiefs. They have the head-to-head over the Chiefs, so a win here would definitely put them over the top. By the way, this is a Saturday night game, something that doesn't happen too often. I think the Dolphins pull off the upset. I'm not sure if the Bills' defense is quite ready to guard Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think Dolphins create some turnovers defensively, something Josh Allen does pretty often. I don't think Bills find much success in the run game. They limit Josh Allen's arm and create turnovers, as I said. Give me the Dolphins here in a shocking upset on the road.
Yeah, that would be a huge win for them. In our final game, arguably the most important related to the playoffs, this and the Lions game, the Giants at the Commanders. Whoever loses, it is not looking good for their playoff chances, as they both have tough remaining schedules. So this is a must-win game for both teams. I will definitely be tuning into this one. These teams are going to be battling out. They know the stakes here. Giants currently in, Seahawks currently on the outside looking in. Lions really just looking at this game and like, oh, sorry, I don't know why I said Seahawks. Giants and Commanders both currently in. The loser of this will probably drop out after this week, though. If the Seahawks get a win, they are currently on the outside looking in. So huge game for both teams. Super exciting. Commanders currently hot. Giants currently cold. I got the Commanders. They're going to keep their streak alive, and Giants will be in dangerous waters. Marco?
Last time these two met in New York a couple weeks ago, it was a very dominant Giants game, but ended in a tie. Felt like Washington was just hanging on all game until the end, where they got some momentum. I think they keep that momentum. They beat the Giants, and I don't see Giants end up making the playoffs this year. I think Commanders win and hugely improve their playoff chances and give them some comfort for their hard remaining schedule.
Yeah, that's a super important game there. Next up, we have a little World Cup recap and a little bit of predictions. First, Morocco taking down Portugal, and Croatia taking down Brazil. Huge upsets. Ronaldo going down, Neymar going down. Those are two of the four soccer players I know the names of. So huge upsets there. Croatia winning in PKs. Did Morocco win in PKs too, right?
No, they won 1-0 regular time.
Oh, regular time. Okay. Yeah, so that's a big win. Semifinals are set. And then not as shocking, Argentina will play. Argentina gets the win, and they will play. Oh, sorry. I don't know what I'm talking about. Argentina beating Croatia in the semifinals. They advanced to the finals. So that's a huge win there. Messi, I think, scored a goal. Another one of the soccer players I know. Huge win there. Obviously getting to World Cup finals. And then tomorrow we have France versus Morocco. You might be listening to this by the time this has already happened, but I'm riding with my guy Mbappe. France is going all the way. Mbappe and France getting the W here.
Yeah, so this is going to be a big game. France versus Morocco. Morocco has only allowed one goal in the World Cup so far. That goal was an own goal, so no team has scored on them. Led by Hakimi, a very good winger. Morocco, a great team. Their goalie's phenomenal. They pretty much play defense the whole game. Then whenever you make a mistake, they go on a counterattack, and they usually capitalize off those. So you can't make big mistakes against Morocco. I actually think England outplayed France in that game. I think France got away with one with Harry Kane missing that penalty in the 83rd minute. Not sure how he missed the penalty by 20 feet, by the way, but that's a different story. Um, but I do think France is just so much more talented. Mbappe is so much faster than all the Moroccan defenders. Um, just too much talent for France. I think France win this game, and we get a France Argentina final and a Croatia versus Morocco third place game.
Yep, definitely interesting to see the soccer finals of the world going on right now. And then finally, some early bowl game predictions, some lower level games, but still going to be fun to watch. First off, we have number 25 UTSA, first moving into the rankings last week, and versus number 24 Troy. Troy made some noise earlier in the season, beating with that game against Appalachian State. UTSA just gotten a couple wins. They've had a very good record in a pretty bad conference, but they were able to secure their spot in the rankings. This should be a pretty good one. I think I got Troy here. I think they've just been more of a consistent team. I think they have more talent, even though it's not that much talent. It's still Division I football. I think they have more talent than UTSA, and I think they're going to get the job done. Marco?
I mean, you look at who Troy played last game. They played Coastal Carolina. They beat Coastal Carolina by 20 points. If you can beat Coastal Carolina by 20 points, you can beat any team in the world. UTSA, you better run. Troy has been one of the best teams I have seen ever since that Appalachian State game. They beat Coastal Carolina 45-26. Enough said.
And Coastal Carolina is the best team in the world. I mean, obviously they were taking it easy on them, but
even Coastal Carolina,
even when they're taking it easy.
Yeah, Troy's the second best team in the world. I think they dominate this game. UTSA stands no chance. I think Kenneth Vidal dominates the Troy running back. Give me Troy. They out physicalize UTSA, and UTSA will want to run away.
Is physicalize a word? I don't think it is.
Possibly.
Someone look that up. All right, next up we have a little bit higher profile teams. Number unranked Florida versus number 14 Oregon State. Oregon State started the season a little bit slow, I will say. 2 losses in their first 5 games, and then a loss to Washington later in the season. But very recently, they got a win over number 9 Oregon. They're definitely looking like a good team. Florida, on the other hand, started out very hot, but they have just been on the decline recently. Still a very solid team, but I just think this Oregon State team is hot, and they're going to get the win here. Marco?
Yeah, well, Florida practically owns rights to the Pac-12 because they beat Utah, but that was week 1 in the swamp, and that was off of by 3 points or something because Utah made a bad play late. Florida sucks, and their whole team just transferred, so that's tough for them. I believe 12 Florida players transferred. 6 of those players probably start. 12 of them are probably 5 stars. So I think Oregon State's going to win this game. Too physical for Florida. Florida's locker room is completely broken up. Anthony Richardson probably won't play. Oregon State's just going to win this game. They're the better team.
Yeah, I'd agree. And finally, we have Cincinnati without Luke Fickell versus Louisville with Jeff Brom. This is definitely a good game here. Another lower level game. Both teams unranked. Cincinnati fell off since last year, but this is gonna be a good one. I think I'm leaning towards Louisville here. I just think that they're a pretty solid team, even despite them. Despite them having 5 losses, I think they're a good team, and I really like their quarterback Malik Cunningham, and I think he's going to be dangerous for the Cincinnati team.
This game's being played in Fenway Park, by the way. Don't really know why. Not a very good place for a football game, but give me Louisville here. I think Malik Cunningham has a very big game. he probably will play. I don't think he can turn pro this year. I think Louisville's defense gets it done, and they get a big win for the ACC and prove that the ACC is not an absolute joke, even though it is.
Yeah, hopefully they can get a statement win there for the ACC. Yep, thank you all for listening to the Second Take podcast. We will see you next week.
See ya.
Peace.